I'm Matt with Maker, and I'm here to talk to you about what it is that we're up to. So there's a lot to cover here in the next 20 minutes, and our system's quite complex. I want to spend a few minutes just going over the basics of what Maker is comprised of and why you should care before getting into the good stuff, okay? So apologies to those already in the know. Feel free to fiddle on your phones for the next 6 minutes or so. I won't mind, and I will let you know when we get to the new info. Maker is a decentralized autonomous organization built on the DAI credit system. We started this journey over 3 years ago and currently employ over 70 people around the world. DAI is a hard currency because it's backed by the equivalent of more locked assets than those that are in circulation. It's permissionless, which means that it's unstoppable. Anyone, anywhere, can use it at any time. The first way to interact with the DAI credit system is for stability seekers looking to hedge out of more volatile assets, or for a safe, secure store of value or unit of account on-chain. These users are going to hold and use DAI. The second and third reasons one would interact with the DAI credit system is via what we call a collateralized debt position, or CDP for short. Both of these use cases are speculative and are dependent on the creator having faith in the future value of the asset they are depositing into the CDP. For example, if you hold Ethereum, or in the future virtually any asset that can be tokenized, you can deposit your token into a CDP and take out a loan against that collateral. If the price goes up, you profit from the continued holding of that asset, while at the same time you're able to utilize the cash that you removed from the CDP so that you can do whatever you needed to do with it. Some CDP owners have already used CDPs to hold their ETH while paying their bills, buying a new car, and some have even bought a house with that cash from a CDP. The last use case for CDPs is low counterparty risk margin trading. Currently, if you want to increase your exposure to an asset like Ethereum, it's necessary to trust the exchange where you deposited your funds to not get hacked or run off with your funds. With CDPs, you never lose custody of your funds, and you can increase your exposure in excess of 3x today. So you can see here the timeline for DAI. It's been out since 2016. We're currently in beta, and we're very excited to launch multi-collateral in the third quarter. So the current version of DAI in the wild, we're calling it beta because it's single collateral, which means that if a black swan were to occur and the price of ETH was to drop instantaneously across all exchanges at once to zero for more than an hour, then DAI would fail. The multi-collateral version of DAI is due to be released later this quarter and will be resilient even in the face of such an event, because the collateral pool will be diversified with non-correlated assets. This means that even if one collateral type fails completely, that DAI holders will still be made whole because all CDPs in which the DAI were created are all over-collateralized. So you might have asked yourself how the marketplace, or the market cap or scale, when only ERC20 tokens are going to be used as collateral. The process will be relatively slow going at first, but before you know it, anything and everything that can be represented with a token can and will be, including and especially assets in the physical world. This is because the inertia of increased efficiency, fungibility, and introduction of subsequent discrete price discovery will push owners of these assets to tokenize them, to reap the benefits and the associated profit. Things like bundled real estate, securities, commodities, and then novel assets like tokenized individual invoices, and eventually yourself. Just as you can go to the bank today and get a loan against your future productive value, in the future you will be able to do the same with CDPs. Home mortgage is the best known example of equity financing, and customers will benefit from the efficiency and low costs associated with equity loans based on tokenized real estate. Supply chain financing is also an example of equity financing. Some of you may have heard about our partnership with Tradeshift. Imagine the amount of DAI created just from tokenizing even a fraction of Tradeshift's $100 billion in yearly turnover for invoices on the supply chain. The value proposition of centralized exchanges is their access to stable store of value and fiat on and off ramps. And sadly, for many, still a place to store their crypto. With a decentralized, stable store of value, there is much less need for centralized exchanges to fill that void, and these three value propositions will disintermediate to favor cold storage wallets, decentralized exchanges, and low-cost, specific businesses that are focusing on fiat on and off ramps in local currencies. Remittance companies popped up a few years ago when Bitcoin sprang onto the scene, but have since generally fizzled to the high cost of transactions and instability of the unit of account. With DAI, the cost of transfer is generally speaking quite low and likely to be even lower in the future. And the unit of account is stable. As a result, a resurgence of geographically focused remittance companies are going to be popping up. Charities, NGOs, and governments are all set for disruption due to the transparency that a stable unit of account can bring. We are exiting the era of accepted opacity and lack of provenance and entering the era when a donor or a taxpayer will demand to know exactly what their donations or tax dollars are being used on. Consumer lending is going to be disrupted once self-sovereign identity is unlocked along with a stable store of value, as it can then be tokenized and then can be used as collateral. The lower rates found on-chain via increased efficiency in credit creation and transparent risk assessment will make it hard for traditional banks and credit card companies to compete. We believe that central banking will be disrupted because citizens will prefer decentralized credit creation and the efficiencies to be found from an open marketplace of risk assessors using scientific methodology rather than central banking whims and geopolitical forces. OK, time to put the phones down. Not that many of you are actually using them right now. As you can see, we're hard at work here at Maker. And as we scale up the Maker Foundation, the pace of our product development and iteration is accelerating. So here's the first part of our project roadmap. Here's the second. Don't worry about getting all this information. I'm going to cover it in depth. So here at Maker, we take smart contract security very seriously and have worked very hard for years to ensure the highest degree of safety possible in our smart contracts. With the release of multi-collateral, we take that commitment to the next level by launching what we believe to be the world's first formally verified decentralized application in multi-collateral DAI. So anybody who's interacted with the DAI dashboard has known the pain associated with doing so, but we're very excited to release 2.0, which is going to have things like Ledger and Trezor support, and will include proxy contracts for getting margin easily and seamlessly. The next few slides are unfinished and unpolished screenshots of things that we're working on right now and set to release in the near term. This one is OasisDex 2.0, which has some UI and back-end upgrades with more features coming in 2019. This is a screenshot of the MKR governance dashboard. This is where you would go to vote on risk parameters in the system. And this is our auction UI. This is basically for profit-motivated actors to come and interact with the system and find ways to arbitrage. But most people won't ever see this. OK. Let's talk about governance. Our governance overview is being released in 3 parts, the second of which coming out next week on our blog. The integrity of the MakerDAO system, the supply of DAI, and more importantly, the stability of DAI all depend on effectively managing the risks inherent to the system. 2 avenues of information are going to be available to MKR token holders to support their decisions. The first is educational, including videos, papers, and tools. The second are forums for debate and resolution, using combinations of social media at first, but eventually made available through a portal. Decentralizing risk achieves 2 purposes. First, it creates the possibility for methodologically scientific governance. And second, it creates a more effective risk function. Our governance process is split into 2 separate votes: governance votes and executive votes. Scientific governance is implemented through governance votes at first to acquire resolution. Then successful executive votes will implement state changes on the blockchain. Governance votes can be once-off, intermittent, or regular, whereas executive votes are regular and will be quarterly. Maker needs to provide more than just a technical upgrade to the financial system. It should also revolutionize the role of finance in the economy. DAI already levels the playing field for the unbanked and small businesses against the incumbents, but to truly make an impact, we need to go further by ensuring DAI becomes a global engine for equality. The Maker Foundation has allocated an amount of MKR from the dev fund that corresponds to 20% of the total supply of MKR to continuously finance charitable initiatives or direct giving schemes that use DAI as the financial infrastructure. MKR voters will directly govern the charitable transactions, adding another crucial dimension of altruism to the governance philosophy. The 20% principle will be funded in a sustainable manner that ensures the charitable transactions will always remain at 20% of the system's fees minus expenses. Distribution of charitable funds will be managed through a process similar to the governance framework. The Maker Foundation will initially lead the community by presenting the best choices available, but over time, the process will become decentralized and completely controlled by the community through a framework that is based on data-driven impact analysis. We are funding and supporting internally the development of an open source technology that is building an API for the blockchain. With Maker API, you can get real-time information about the state of the Maker system at any time. This makes the smart contract data much more accessible. Getting data from the blockchain is currently very slow and cumbersome versus getting data from the web. Maker API will provide a much more web-like API experience that developers are used to. We are also building a JavaScript library to interact with our smart contracts. It will provide a flexible, high-level API for interacting with our smart contracts, specifically CDPs to start. It will act as a supplementary way to understand the DAI credit system and provide a path to building dApps using DAI and CDPs. It will provide JavaScript tooling to aid the community in developing JavaScript projects interacting with the blockchain. In the current, this is feeds, by the way, yeah. In our current implementation of feeds, we keep everything on chain. This means if we have an oracle with 15 sources, we can have up to 15 transactions every time there's a price change. When the network is congested, this can mean that price changes are slow to update. With the new version, our oracles don't even have to run an Ethereum node or have any balance in their accounts. The Ethereum count is used solely as a signing mechanism, and once enough signatures are aggregated, we can send one transaction to the blockchain that'll contain the price data of all the oracles, making it cheaper to update our prices and faster too, since one transaction contains data for 15 oracles instead of 1 per oracle. Everything that has a price feed can be represented on-chain and backed by DAI. The first things that are going to be represented will be fiat pairs, but you can imagine other things in the future that also might be represented. So we chose to start out pegged to the US dollar because of market demand. But is that really the ideal solution? We don't believe so. The world's currencies are bound to geopolitical forces. The establishment of a stable, secure, safe digital currency outside of the nation state, which is not bound to whims of geopolitical randomness, has the potential to be incredibly empowering for the people of the world by providing stability. We are working on an algorithm which is tied more closely to global means of production and consumer price index than to geopolitically dependent fiat price information, and are looking to launch the subsequent version of DAI in 2019, at which point we will slowly move to this price reference and away from the dollar. If this presentation was interesting for you and you would like to learn more about our upcoming JavaScript release, please see Ethan's workshop in an hour. You can also go to dai.makerdao.com. It's where CDPs can be created and managed. You can go to mkr.tools to see the current system over collateralization, along with the health metrics of the DAI credit system. We also have a very long list of open positions, including ones here in Berlin. So if you're interested in working with us, please check out our career page. Thanks, everybody, for your time and attention.